For our next step, I'm going to take 2 more strips, which were 9 inches. At least they were 9 inches for me. Might be a little bit different for you. But we're going to crisscross over these strips that we've already set down. So going to go on a diagonal here. Just using exactly the same method, making sure that the top hat stays as perfect a circle as you can make it. And if this one props up a little bit, you can just pull those 2 crossing ones underneath up so that it gets stuck down. So now we just have 1 more strip to go. Also another 9-inch strip, and we're just going to go directly across just like this. Kind of so it looks like a bow at this point. So just sticking that down right there on the sides, and then very carefully pushing this entire thing up so we can stick that piece down on the top. Doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, this part is going to be pretty high up in the air, so unless you're a bird flying by, you're not going to be able to see this part very well. So once we get those 2 strips on, we're ready to move on to our next step. So this is basically what your top hat should look like so far, just a little bit of an overlap here on the top of it. Basically now what we're going to do is we're going to flip the entire thing over, so this is where your head would go up here. And you can see all those sticky sides that are sticking up on the inside of the top hat. We're actually going to cover up a bunch of those right now. So I'm going to take a whole bunch of strips these are about 7 inches long, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in there and basically just going to cover up as much of those sticky parts as I possibly can. It doesn't really matter if you mess up too much on the inside, because absolutely nobody is going to see the inside of your top hat. So we're going to take our second strip here. I guess I'm just going to go around the sides for starters in here. Basically, you're just trying to cover up as much of the sticky side as possible. It's not like your head is going to be tall enough that you're actually going to encounter that sticky side in there, but you try to want to cover up as much of it as possible. So now we have our 2 strips in there, and now I'm going to apply 2 more of them. So for the other 2 in there, I got another 7-inch strip. Just going to put it on the side here. Once again, just covering up as much of that sticky side as I can. The sides of the table obviously just get plastered up against the walls. So now we just have that 1 part over there, you can kind of see in there. That's going to be our last strip for the sides, and then we just have to cover up the ones in the center, which I'll do with 2 smaller strips. So we have that stuck in there. Make sure it's good and stuck to the sides of the top hat. And now we are going to just take a few little strips and just cover up that square in the center, and then that'll pretty much do the entire inside of the top hat. Alright, so 2 more pieces in there right in the center will cover up the rest of the sticky side. So now we're going to flip the entire thing back over here. And you'll notice you should have a whole bunch of little wedges that are exposed on this side with the sticky side, because we applied it from the inside as well. To cover those up, it's actually really simple. I just take some little squares of tape here, just come to about the side of the top hat, and then just stick them down just like this. So we have that one stuck down there, another one right over here. Take another one, keep just rotating the hat around here. Stick one right about there. Take 1 more, and we'll stick this one right over here. So just keep cutting out these small little squares, and that'll cover up the rest of these little sticky wedges that you're seeing right here on the top of the top hat. So that's what your top hat should look like now. There are no more sticky wedges showing. You can also reach your hand inside here and kind of give yourself a little bit of a firm surface to push some of the sticky sides that are showing down. Just make sure that it's all stuck down. It should be 1 flat surface on the top of the top hat here. So we want to make sure that it's all flat and absolutely no sticky sides are showing at all. So basically what we're going to do now, you'll notice that some of these are coming around the side here at different angles. So basically what we're going to do now is I'm going to add my first stripe here for the top of the top hat, and this will start working on the cat in the hat colors of the top hat here. So basically what I'm going to do is going to take a strip of tape, kind of just want to apply it right here on the center, and you want to make sure the key here is to actually have a straight line all the way around the top of the hat. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to trim little pieces here so that when I do fold it down, it'll be able to flex at different spots, and it won't be all bunched up on the side here. So I'm going to trim right here, here, and here, so that it's on a curve, and when it curves right down, it won't have too much trouble, flexing on there. So let's do that step right now. Alright, so now we are back to the workstation here. Now using that method that I just showed you, I applied a whole bunch of strips around the very top of the hat, and that basically made just this red stripe at the very top. Now if you are making the actual Cat in the Hat top hat, all of the lines are exactly the same width, so you know the red lines are the exact same width as the white lines. So if you wanted to do something like that, you can just probably make these lines a little bit bigger with a few more strips of tape going all the way around, and then kind of just use your ruler to measure how big you want the red one, then the white one, then the red one, then the white one, and so on and so forth, just so you don't run out of room when you get towards the end of the top hat here. So I'm gonna leave that totally up to you guys. If you want to, you just take like some red stripes here and then just just apply them just right across the side, and then that'll make your pretty much a Cat in the Hat top hat. So basically what we're going to do next is I'm going to show you how to make the brim, and we'll do a little bit of decoration, and then that will be our top hat pretty much. So let's work on the brim next. So basically to make the brim for the top hat that I made a giant sheet of tape that was about 1 inch longer than the top hat on all sides, and then I just pretty much set the top hat on top of it just like this, traced it out, and then cut a giant hole out of the sheet of tape here. That's obviously where my head would go inside the actual top hat here. So this does waste a little bit of tape because you have this giant circle here which you really can't do much with, but I'm actually going to show you another use for this at the end of the video. So we're actually going to be doing it this way, and we're going to be making a giant rectangular sheet, and then I'll show you a use for this at the end. So let's get started here on making the sheet which will serve as the brim for our top hat. So let's get started here on that. Alright, so now we're going to work on making the brim, and to make the brim for our top hat we actually have to do a little bit of measuring. Now on my top hat I have about 1 inch brim that goes all the way around the bottom of the top hat here, and basically what we're going to do is if you want to make 1 inch, it's usually a pretty good sized brim, so that's what we're going to be doing for this tutorial. Now to do this we have to measure the length as well as the length across our top hat here, as well as the length on the top and bottom, as well as the sides. It is a perfect circle, but it's going to be a little bit different because it's not exactly a perfect circle. So you want to measure straight across and then up and down as well. So once I did that, it came to about 8.5 inches. That gives about 1 inch on each side, and it's about 8.5 inches across and 8.5 inches across up and down as well. So we're going to be cutting out 8.5 inch strips for me, and we're going to be making a strip of tape that's 8.5 inches long. So let's get started here on that. Remember the measurements are going to be a little bit different for you depending on how big your head is, but you generally want to go about 1 inch over of your top hat on all 4 sides. So let's get started here on that. So for me it's 8.5 inches to make 1 inch on each side for the brim. So basically what I'm going to do is going to cut out several 8.5 inch strips just like this, and I'm going to start sticking these together. So if you have a cutting mat or a ruler or something like that, you just want to lay it up on the side here. If you have a cutting mat, it's going to be really simple. You just want to keep applying strips of tape until you come to about however long you want your brim to be, or however long your measurements were. For me it's 8.5 inches, so that's what I'm going to do. Just keep applying these strips so I have a perfect square that's 8.5 inches high and 8.5 inches wide. So I'm going to keep applying these strips until I get that perfect square. So here we have my 8.5 inch by 8.5 inch perfect square. So now basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my top hat here, you set it directly on top. This way you want to align it so that there is 1 inch on all 4 corners. Obviously the corners here will be fine because we'll be cutting around it to make it a little more rounded. But you want to make sure you have 1 inch on all 4 sides. So on the bottom here it's about 1 inch, inch on the left, inch on the top, and 1 inch on the bottom. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Sharpie here just so that it's a little bit easier to mark, and I'm just going to go directly around the top hat here. You can overshoot by just a tiny little bit, but you want to kind of just make sure that it's exactly the same size as your hat. So if your hat curves just a little bit, try to compensate for that when you go all the way around. And obviously you do not want to push the top hat or warp it anyway. You want to make sure that it's perfectly circular on here, and then you want to trace it from there. So make sure that it's perfect before you start tracing it. So trace it all the way around, and then we'll have our imprint for the circle, and then we'll start putting the brim on. So once you have it all traced out, you can cut out this piece here. And remember, I do have a use for this at the end, so definitely save that for later. And now we pretty much have our brim. I did trim on the sides here, so we do have more or less a perfect circle. It's not exactly perfect, but you get the idea. And don't worry too much about the pen marks or anything like that if you use the Sharpie or anything, because once we attach it to the hat, you're going to be sticking pieces of tape over that part completely, so you won't have to worry about that. So now let's get our top hat here, and let's start sticking this brim onto the top hat. So let's get started here on that. Alright, so now we're going to connect the brim to the actual top hat. So to do that, I just cut out a long strip, cut it into several pieces, and then cut those in half. Basically, when you're connecting the brim to the top hat, you want to make the strips as small as possible because the smaller the better when you apply them to the side here. Since the top hat does curve, you want to make sure that they're fairly small and they'll be able to flex a little bit better with the top hat. So basically, you set your entire top hat inside this this brim here. Make sure that it's totally inside. I got that part stuck down over there. So I'm just going to swivel it, just kind of pivot it around here. And I'm going to stick another piece right there. You're kind of making just like a wall that goes onto the actual top hat itself and kind of bridges the gap between the top hat and the brim. And try not to put too much stress like on the tape. Like if you see it start to peel up a little bit, you're applying too much on this side and when you're attaching to the top hat. So just keep going around. You can always take it off and reapply it if it's not coming out the way you want it to. So sticking this piece on here, once again just forming that wall on the side. I'll show you one more piece. You're just going to keep doing this all the way around your top hat until you have your brim totally stuck on. So just keep applying those strips all the way around the sides of the top hat. So basically, after I attached the brim all the way around the top hat, I just threw a few extra stripes on there, and pretty much we have our finished Cat in the Hat top hat. So what do you think? I think it looks pretty cool. This one isn't quite as long, as tall as the other one that I showed you. The other one was 12 inches. It was kind of like a monster top hat. This one was only 10 inches high, but I think it looks pretty good. 10 inches is probably a little bit easier to work with than 12 inches. This one actually fits on the screen, unlike the other one, which was kind of even higher than the screen itself. So pretty much, it's actually really funny because it's pouring and just lightning and thundering out right now, which is really funny because in the Cat in the Hat story, it was raining too. So I thought that was pretty hilarious that I'm filming this tutorial and it's pouring outside. But anyway, so hopefully you guys enjoy making this top hat here. I promised I did show you what to do with that crazy, giant circular white piece that I cut out earlier. So basically what I did is I threw a little bit of black tape on it, and I pretty much just made a mask. If you can kind of see it there, there you go. It's kind of like one of those, I guess, like those theater masks where it has like the frown on one side and like the smile on the other side. Just cut a few little holes out of it, and you've got your it's kind of scary with the Cat in the Hat hat on, but that's pretty much like your theater mask. You can put like a little bit of cardboard on there, and you can kind of like hold it up to your face and stuff like that. So that's what to do with the circular piece that you cut out. So you can definitely reuse that and salvage it for something else. So hopefully you guys enjoyed making the Cat in the Hat top hat. This is my 200th video, like I said earlier, so I really wanted to make it a really awesome video and really crank out an awesome tutorial for you guys. So hopefully you'll enjoy making this one, and hopefully you'll make one and show it to all your friends and just get them involved with duct tape through the use of the Cat in the Hat top hat. So catch you guys next time on the channel. There will be a special video coming tonight, kind of celebrating that 200th video milestone. So check out the video coming tonight, and I'll catch you guys then. Take care.